Hey, friends! Welcome to another episode of Square of Self Love. Alrighty, let's get into it. I am back with another episode. This one's going to be on time. Your girl has a 2 episode streak so far for being on time, so kind of excited. I am pretty excited for this episode. I think I'm excited for every episode. This one is going to be focused on embracing change, navigating uncertainty in a fast paced world. And I think this is one of those things that is going to be good for, my adult girlies who are learning how to adult. Definitely me. So I kind of just want to talk about, embracing change in self love and how self love impacts your ability to embrace change, and then how we can work on kind of being more adaptable when it comes to change without choice, and just things like that. I feel like it's never easy, but whatever we can do to kind of mitigate those challenges. And, like change is inevitable. So that's one of the things that I feel like this is one of those episodes that'll be helpful just because, you're bound to encounter some form of change. Also, disclaimer, I have been like not sick. My allergies are just like really showing out. So, if I sound disgusting, yeah. So if I sound different, that's what's going on. All right, let's hop into the episode. First things first, if you don't already follow me on Instagram, please follow me at square.of.self.love and subscribe to my podcast wherever you are listening to this. It is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can find all of these links in the link in my bio. And I think that is all there. Announcements. I will be having my Square of Self Love session this Saturday on Discord. If you are not sure how to find that, I have a newsletter that is available in the link in my bio as well. Feel free to join early. It's kind of just like an open forum. I'll do a lot more like promo the week or this week just to like kind of raise awareness and get people engaged. And I really, my goal is small, right? I really just want like 5 people in this room. It's audio only, so you don't have to worry about like getting cute. You will not be seen. You can also do anonymous listening where you can still engage and talk, but you can like come in anonymously. You can change your name so that, we don't know who you are. That way, if you do share something vulnerable, or if you don't want to, feel uncomfortable when you are disclosing maybe personal things, you don't have to worry about that. I really want this to be a safe space for people to talk about how they feel, which I'm aware that, maybe this opens me up for trolls, but whatever, like maybe the trolls can get help too. So with that being said, let's hop into the episode. We're going to start off with our affirmations. So get cozy, get your journal. For new listeners, the way I do affirmations, I do 4 for 3 minutes, and I really just try to repeat it. I give space for you to repeat it, as well as kind of just allow you to ruminate, emphasize the words that stand out to you the most. And then I really do this, I change the affirmations every episode, but I really do this kind of hoping that you guys adopt your own affirmations. And so that's always fun. Also, this is during the eclipse, so I feel like this episode is going to bring good luck for some reason. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm going with that. Okay. Affirmation time. I trust my ability to adapt and thrive in the face of change. I trust in my ability to adapt and thrive in the face of change. I trust in my ability to adapt and thrive in the face of change. I trust in my ability to adapt and thrive in the face of change. Change is an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. Change is an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. Change is an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. I am resilient and capable of facing any challenges that come my way. I am resilient and capable of facing any challenges that come my way. I am resilient and capable of facing any challenges that come my way. I embrace new possibilities and opportunities for personal development. I embrace new opportunities and possibilities for personal development. I embrace new opportunities and possibilities for personal development. I embrace new opportunities and possibilities for personal development. All right. Outstanding work, guys. Sorry, I think I was supposed to do that for 2.5 minutes, but I ended up I don't know. I don't know. I ended up dividing my time wrong. I don't know. Anyway, I hope it helped. Okay. Let's get into the episode. Okay. So I'm really excited about this episode. I think it just comes in light of, I'm getting ready to go to residency. I'm getting ready to graduate medical school. I'm stepping into a very big role, very different from what I've ever been used to. And I feel like this is one of the times where people really question themselves a lot, and just like their value, their self worth. And I feel like as millennials, which I don't know, like my major listening audience, so you guys let me know if I'm wrong, but I feel like as, the millennial Gen Z group kind of transitions into adulthood, it's just very weird. Like it's a very weird phase to be in. It's uncomfortable. It's like, how do we know what to do? No one can really relate to what it's like being an adult for the first time in like today's financial climate. And I know that, other generations have had very different adverse experiences, but, we've only been us once. So, um, but I just feel like it's one of those things that's very different, very hard to adapt to. And you really don't know how you take on change until you are just thrusted into it. And so I kind of just wanted to focus on a couple points or a few points that highlight, how we take on change personally. And, talking about it more from a self perspective, how I or you, the listener, how I adapt to change, how I learn to adapt to change. Sometimes we learn to adapt to change in very toxic ways. And, that's more based on survival and the fact that you don't have a choice. And so how has having those, adaptive measures helped or hurt you is something also to really consider. So, um, let's get into the points. The first one is understanding the nature of change. And so think about like the unique changes that you've had, or opportunities that you've faced where, you kind of just had to change. You didn't have much of a choice. or even the changes that you elected for, the changes you planned on. And this could be something like, getting married, buying a house, even in your career, getting a promotion, taking on new responsibilities, having children. So I feel like, in those times of change, whether you had a choice or not, how did you, adapt to that? And I feel like for me personally, I think one of the biggest changes that I had to really adapt to was medical school and just getting the flow of it, the pace. And I feel like a lot of my examples are academic, but even in my personal life, when I moved for my post-bac program, moving away from my home was really different. I was used to, I went to undergrad at home. So I was used to always having my parents around, always going to their house to hang out, having a social group. But now I had to like establish my own. And even going to Barcelona in February, for a month and having to adapt, that was like the most uncomfortable change, but it was definitely something that, I planned for and I expected, but I just couldn't anticipate the degree of change that would be required within myself to really kind of mold into that environment. And I loved it. I was, I'm very fortunate to even have that opportunity. And I thought it was really amazing just for, self-development and developing for my career, but very different at the same time. So let's hop into these reflective questions. When was the last time I was forced into change and how did I react? And so that's definitely something to consider. When you don't have a choice for change, there's often resentment there. There's often, change, but whether you are adaptive to it or not, it may be begrudgingly or, with hesitation or whatever the case may be. And so what was that forced change? Was it maybe someone you loved passed away? Maybe a friendship or relationship ended before you were ready for it to end. Maybe you lost a pet. That's really hard on, people as well. I know me personally, I'd probably be devastated if my dog died. And so just thinking about the last time that you would change, and the pandemic is a big change for a lot of people. A lot of people had to really adapt their entire lifestyle after the pandemic. And so when you had that change, how did you adjust? The thing about forced change is you don't have a choice. So it's kind of like, well, I just kind of did it. But I challenge you to really think about it. Like, did you just kind of do it? Or did you, have things in place already just in case you had to change? How is your preparation skills? Were you well prepared for that change? And, kudos to yourself if you were. But if you weren't, think about that. Like, how can I better prepare for change without choice sometimes? And that's like a loaded question, right? There's no way that you can like prepare for what you don't know is ahead. But if there's anything that you can do now that you feel like would, make a unwanted change easier, can you do that within your control? So I think that's really big. And then this is an extra question that I really kind of wanted to pitch and have you guys consider. How has avoiding change served me? Has it cost me more than benefit? And that is very important to think about. I think oftentimes we have our most challenging moments in times of avoiding change. And sometimes, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, sometimes change is needed and warranted. And so thinking about the times that, you had all the indicators, you had all of the suggestions that pointed to something has to change here, and you were not able to do that for whatever reason, you weren't able to implement that change. How did that cost you your peace, your wellness, your, mental stability, your trajectory, even, your success? How has avoiding change cost you? And I think about it when my mom's a teacher, and she's always been the type of educator that really moved with the times. I've always admired this about her. She's really good at kind of grasping onto whatever the students are learning or the technology that they can use best or whatever their age is really best at adapting with. She learns that, and she really does learn it in a way that's very intentional, because she's like, I can teach them in their language. I can teach them in the way that they understand the world. And that has really only served her. But she's often talked about how so many other educators in her, school or practice struggle with that. They can't take on that change. And I've even thought about it for myself. TikTok is one of the like black holes of the world for me. I can't seem to get a hold of it. I don't really know what the catch is, but at the same time, I remember being one of the people who couldn't understand Instagram and didn't understand why posting a picture would be something that somebody would want to keep up with, you know? And then I started doing it more so just to keep up with everyone else. And I've loved it, you know? It's one of my favorite platforms. And I love it because there's so much to see in a picture and you can experience the world from other people's vision. Like it's something that I would not have considered otherwise unless I took on that change myself. So, you know, in what ways has avoiding change affected you? And, you know, I say, how has that cost you? But, you know, in some cases, maybe you see it as a benefit. So however you see it, consider how you see it and why you see it that way. Because I think that's something worth considering. Okie doke. So we're going to move to our next main point. And this point focuses on building resilience in a time of transition and how self-love really is that foundation for that resilience. And I just feel like my most resilient times and the times where I have really had to access everything that I feel about myself and really strengthen how I view myself in those times of transition, because transition will really tell you, you know, where people stand, how people feel about you, how they feel about themselves in regards to you, where their priorities lie. Like, you will find out so much about yourself and about others in times of transition. And so I feel like just for me, when it comes to like my times of resiliency, I think about getting into medical school and how exhausting that process was, doing a post-bac program, having to move to another state. You know, I did my post-bac program in Carbondale, Illinois. This is a college town. I'd never even heard of Carbondale, Illinois before my post-bac program. And, you know, uprooting, I wasn't able to work because of the rigor of the program. So I literally had to be financially dependent on my parents. And then, you know, I got a little side job tutoring, but even that, like, wasn't enough to pay my bills. So I was like completely, I felt like a burden even in that time. And I think just telling myself, like, look, this is an investment in myself, and taking it into consideration that there are people who love me that see this as a worthwhile investment, you know, and I owe it to them and myself to see myself the same way. You know, it's only right that I can really honor their belief in me and go full throttle, go full force, and really pull all the resilience I can for the sake of making sure this is a success. And so, you know, resiliency is something I feel like it's very much so pushed on the people who have a non-traditional journey, the people who struggle, you know, and it's like something that is admired, but it sucks to really have to have. But you have to have it in whatever capacity, right? Like, everyone's going to have moments where they have to be resilient. And I think just in those moments, you really have to believe in yourself. Like, it is a layer of self-confidence that you just have to have in order to push through and come back, especially from a setback. Like, you have to really believe in yourself. So I can rant on this, but let's get into the self-reflective questions. So how do you cope with feelings of uncertainty and anxiety during times of transition? And so that's hard, right? Like, in times of transition, there's so much uncertainty sometimes. Like, even if you planned it, there's so much that you don't know, that you're waiting on, you know, point A to go through so that you can move to point B, so that you can move to point C. So there's so much that can be left to the unknown. But that is when you pull through with your self-confidence. That is when you just have to say, you know what? And I'm a woman of God. So that is where a lot of my resiliency lies is, you know, I know that God trusts that I can handle this. I know that God is with me. I'm never alone when I come to a point of transition that I am unprepared for or that I'm prepared for. As I prepare for residency, I have constantly been thinking about, what if I start and I don't know as much? And you know, I have these co-residents who are just on it and they get it. And I'm still trying to maneuver a new city, or I'm trying to maneuver a new hospital, or even the new role. How am I supposed to manage this responsibility? But I have to tell myself, I was put in this position, one, for my patients. It's not about me. It is for the people I will be serving. but also I was put in this position because God trusted that I would do what needed to be done. And I really have to trust in that. And I have to trust in myself. I have done the work. I have gone to classes and studied for like decades. And I have learned the skills and honed my craft. And I really have to give myself that pep talk. Sometimes we forget just how invested we've been, like, until we actually think about, oh, this isn't like some random task. Like, I think about it as hilarious that, like, you know, you get done with medical school and it's like, bam, you're responsible for patients at like a grand scale in the hospital. But it's like, that's actually not, it's not a black and white transition like that. Like, it's actually very much so you are prepared for this. And yes, this is a different way of applying it, but like, you are so competent and capable and prepared. And a lot of the times the people who aren't able to see that and accept that and embrace it are the ones who struggle the most, because they don't really, you know, they don't know how much value they have in that moment. And, you know, that's where imposter syndrome comes from, right? Like, not feeling like you belong in a space and not having that confidence, but really, like, you should, and you do, and you absolutely deserve to be there. And you know, I'm kind of expanding this from the medical world to wherever you are in this moment. Like, you deserve to be wherever you are. You did the work, and you have to trust that. Like, there's no other way to say it. And whether you fake it till you make it, or you actually take on this belief, like, you are capable, you are competent, and you are going to make incredible changes because of who you are and what you've been through and that resiliency that you've had to have. So, little pep talk for the girls. Okay. So that was our first reflective question. Reflective question 2, what helps you manage your anxiety during times of change? And I know me personally, I stress eat. That was definitely something that I dealt with in medical school. I would stress eat. I would get, y'all, let me tell you about this. And I'm not proud. And, you know, it's definitely something I might do again in the future. But I'm helping with some like restrictions and limitations. But so I would get one of the personal size cakes from Price Chopper. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Kansas City. So Price Chopper is one of our grocery stores. And I would get like a personal size cake. It would be blank. It would be chocolate. And I would eat that like throughout the week that I was stressed. And it definitely reflected in my weight when comparing before and after med school. But it's just one of those things that I had to recognize, this is unhealthy. This is going to lead me down a path that I'm not happy with, that I can't be proud of myself for. But also, I know that there's much more transition and reasons for anxiety in my future. How will I manage that? How can I handle my stress in a way that I won't have to pay for it with my health? Because my health is very important to me. It's because that is still hurting me. Like, I don't think I have to hurt for this. And so I had to come to terms with it. I had to figure out a healthy way to manage my anxiety. And meditation, journaling, talking about it, having a podcast really was helpful for me. Like, I was getting into the habit of implementing healthy routines because I needed to. And I couldn't just eat a cake every time I was stressed. And it's so funny because my personality is so matter of fact. I would be on the phone with my friends like, you know what? Let me just go get this cake. And I'd be snacking like here and there just throughout the week. And it was just one of those things that like, it made me feel better in the moment. I was indulging in my cravings and it was the one thing I could control, but I had to be honest with myself and just recognize that wasn't healthy and I needed to really like stop. And even now, like, I'm at a point where I'm not as stressed right now. Like, the transition to residency is one of the honestly least stressful parts of medical school for me. And so I feel like as I'm in this healthy space, I really am trying to work on, okay, how do I manage my anxiety now? And exercising is one of those. Like, I really enjoy going to the gym, getting my cute workout clothes, getting my, workout routine down and going and executing it and having a good workout. Like, that makes me feel like I've accomplished something. And in a world where there's so many reasons to stress, there's so many reasons to be anxious, like, be on your side, okay? Do not like feed into the stress with more things that's going to cause you stress. Like, me being a like different weight that I wasn't happy with caused me more stress anyway. Like, I still It still didn't help. So be real with yourself. Think about how you cope with your feelings of uncertainty and anxiety, and what helps you manage that. Which maybe those are similar, but really come up with some options, because change is inevitable, and you're going to need those tools. And then, can you recall a time when you demonstrated resilience in the face of significant life change? And really celebrate that. Be proud of yourself. Like, we forget how resilient we are until we reflect on how resilient we've been. And you have definitely earned it. There's no way you got to your big age, however old you are, without being resilient. Like, it's just not possible. You definitely have it in you. You've done it time and time again. And yeah, sure, this challenge may be huge, maybe something you could have never foreseen, but you can handle this. Like, you can get through it. Now, I'm not saying that you'll get through it maybe with the outcome that you want, but you will survive this. You will get through this. You have the mental capacity. This won't break you. I'm speaking that over you right now. I don't even know who you are, but I'm speaking that this change is not going to break you. You will come out on the other side of this stronger, mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever it might be. But this is not it for you. And that is really just how I feel. Like, being in the hospital, you see some beautiful examples of resiliency. Like, I just feel like people leave the hospital and their health may be worse, but mentally they are in a different space. They've accepted whatever is ahead of them, and they feel like, you know what, no matter what, I'm in control of this. Like, I'm in control of my reaction to the situation. And I just think, like, I've really heard some beautiful testimonies just with patients, just hearing how their life has panned out and how they have navigated some really just unfavorable circumstances. And it really does build a sense of hope for me, because I know if there are people who can overcome some of these mountains, I really can overcome anything. And so that's my rant. Okay. So we are coming towards the last main point, and this point is embracing change as a catalyst for personal growth. And I really think I kind of hit on this in a roundabout way when I've talked about all the other main points, but I have done my best personal growing in times of change. Let me tell you something. 2023 was the year I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt like I was the only one feeling the way I felt. I felt devalued. I was questioning my application to residency. I was so overwhelmed. And number one, most people who know me probably didn't even think this, but I was just so overwhelmed. And in that time, I was like, something's got to give. I got to get closer to God. I got to focus on me. I have to figure out what it is that I can really, and then on top of that, my family was really struggling with, I had a family member really struggling with their health in the time. And that was really, really hard for me. And just having this sense of guilt, because I couldn't be there for that family member, but also having the sense of, I'm sitting here investing all this time in, my residency application, and what if I don't match? And just having to remind myself that, like, these are not productive thoughts to have. I will be present with my loved one when I absolutely can. But right now, me having, like, being in the space where I can't be with them, but also not contributing to the space that I need to be in, is only going to delay my ability to be with them. You see what I mean? Like, I was really not helping myself in either way when I would have negative thoughts, when I would be down on myself for whatever reason. And so I had to come to terms with, like, okay, how am I going to grow from this? How is this moment? Yeah, this sucks, but how is this not going to be my life forever? And I really had to make some strong boundaries for myself. I really had to be honest with myself, and be honest with myself about what I deserve in my life. I deserve people who are invested in me as much as I'm invested in them. I deserve people who can be honest with themselves and with me, and who I can be honest with them. Because I feel like that was a problem too. I felt like I had to be so filtered and so monitored, and certain things I would say would rub people the wrong way. They would take it personal. It wouldn't be well. And I had to accept that, maybe these aren't my people. Maybe this isn't the space that I belong. Because I feel like if you get to the point where you feel like you're the problem, and I'm not,
I feel like this can be misconstrued for sure. But if you get to a space where it feels like, it feels like nothing I do is right, and it feels uncomfortable. I feel like I'm always, the oddball, and when I say how I feel, it's never well received, or it's received, but it's not, it doesn't stimulate productive conversation. I think that is the time to really self-reflect and reflect on the surroundings you've been entertaining. Do you belong in these spaces? And then if you don't, be honest with yourself and leave. It doesn't have to be turmoil. It doesn't have to be, drama or anything like that. But you have to be honest with yourself, because you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the people you love. You can't be in a space and not be yourself and tell me that you are giving and receiving love. That's not realistic to me. And so you really do have to be honest with yourself. Like I said, have a sense of self-love and compassion, give yourself grace, but then embrace that growth. This is an opportunity for both, that environment that you might be leaving and you to benefit. You can walk away amicably from any situation. There is nothing in this world that is, unless it's, jail, but there is nothing shackling you to a circumstance. It is simply your willingness to stay there. Now, okay, maybe I'm speaking as far as like social groups, social settings, things like that. There are like personal relationships that are toxic, and people, lord certain things over people, and that is manipulation. That is not healthy. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, people that you have in your life, maybe a relationship, but also maybe friends, maybe family members, people you will be better off walking away from, and it will be hard. It might be the hardest decision you make in your life, but you have to trust that because you love yourself, you want yourself to be the best version of yourself. This is the only thing you can do to honor that. And it may not be permanent. It may simply be, we do not serve each other right now in this moment. That is fine. Because when you love someone, I truly believe you are willing to do that for both parties, for the betterment of both. And maybe that was a tangent. But the personal growth, like, I feel like that is really when I started to blossom. Certain things that would make me mad doesn't even faze me anymore. It's kind of like, okay, if this is what it is, then it simply is. And there's nothing I can do. I can kick, scream, like, hold on for dear life. But if this is doomed from the start, it is just simply doomed. And maybe it's not doomed. Maybe we're doing ourselves a disservice by not taking the lesson in front of us and really gleaning the lesson and purpose that this was meant to serve. So, man, I feel like that was good. I don't know. I'm going to have to re-listen to this and see if like that actually made sense the way I wanted it to. But I don't know. Y'all let me know. Okay, so self-reflective question time. How have moments of change or uncertainty in my life contributed to my personal growth and development? And so that's kind of what I was talking about, as far as like 2023 being the year that I absolutely had to implement very uncomfortable practices, but also I see now how much they contributed to my growth and development. I feel like I am a woman now. I feel like I was thinking as a, not a girl, but I feel like I was definitely thinking in terms of what I want, and I want for these people to see me a certain way. I want to shape this narrative. I want for them to have a positive view of me. And I want to hold our relationship, our friendship together. I don't want this to end. And I really had to be honest with myself and say, but does it need to? But does it need to? And if it needed to, there was nothing I could do about it. There's literally nothing. It was going to be ended at some point. Whether or not I was open to that ending is the question. And just because I was willing to end it doesn't mean I was necessarily okay with the ending. But I had to be honest with myself that it was going to end regardless. And so I feel like that's just something that as I end medical school, as I end this chapter of my life, I really can embrace that, ending things in whatever capacity. Sometimes it's okay. I am totally okay with ending medical school. But you have to be honest with yourself. Some people went to medical school and dropped out. And now they are living their best lives and their best careers, but they would have never gotten there had they not been willing to have that uncomfortable transition and growth. and then go through that personal growth and development. And so that's huge. Okay. Second self-reflective question. What opportunities for self-discovery have I had from embracing change? And so I can definitely say one of the things that I really appreciated, I got the opportunity to host a podcast for my ODI office. And, I got this opportunity kind of randomly, but I embraced it and I appreciate it because I'm very passionate about podcasting. I'm very passionate about, diversity, equity, inclusion, and education, and especially in the medical field. And this is like merging two of my passions. And I never would have gotten that opportunity had I not been open to informing people and trying new things. I didn't know anything about podcasting prior to this. Like, as far as like before medical school, I knew nothing about podcasting. I remember on my iPod when I was in like high school, on my iPod, I had this purple icon that said podcast, and I clicked on it and it was just a bunch of people talking. And I remember being like, why would anybody want to listen to this? Fast forward to now. But like, it's just stuff like that, embracing change and really just honing those opportunities for change and personal growth. And that's just huge, And then the third self-reflective question. Can you identify any specific skills or qualities you've developed as a result of navigating change? And that's, kind of going back to, can you tell I like know the questions ahead of time and then I just kind of insert my input? But, going back to like my ability to do podcasting, but also like going to Barcelona. I'd known a little bit of Spanish, but my confidence in speaking Spanish was just so in the drain. I felt so insecure. I felt like an imposter. I felt like, oh my goodness, they're going to know. Like, I'm not a native Spanish speaker, and I'm then American. And so we know all the stigmas about Americans. And I was just so nervous. And then I'd never been to Europe before, so I didn't know what to expect from like the social norm standpoint. But I'm so grateful I did it. And I am so grateful for that opportunity. I feel like I have a reinvigorated focus to really understand cultures in the medical world as something to do for my patients. I feel like I owe it to my patients to invest in learning about different cultures, embracing that difference, recognizing how I can honor their culture, even in America. And just being honest with myself, that is where I'm comfortable. That is where my passion lies. Because I love the humanity of medicine. I love how we can all speak different language, but we have the same, feelings, and we have the same experiences when it comes to health, and we all have, the same concerns when it comes to health, and we all struggle in some capacity with health and medicine and needing. And it just really brings into perspective that, you can grow up plenty different than other people. But when it comes down to the basic needs of humanity, everyone appreciates a warm and welcoming face when they are in need. And so that's what I mean by that. And I feel like I'm always giving disclaimers because I really don't want my message to be poorly received or like misconstrued. But I think, for the most part, you guys really know what I'm talking about. And usually you guys receive it well. So, yeah. My final main point for this episode is navigating change in relationships and identity. And so I've hit on this, but it's really important that you don't attach your identity to relationships. And it is this way because relationships are fluid. Relationships are dynamic. The most dynamic thing you can do is be with another person. Because, they have their own experiences. They have their own life experiences that shape who they are and how they behave and how they see the world. And so you have to really be honest with yourself. Do not attach your identity to a relationship, to a person, to a friendship, to a spouse, to family. You have to have your own sense of identity and self-love prior to all of that. Without all of that, if you weren't friends, let's say you're friends with famous people, right? you cannot attach your value to that friendship. And I say famous people because I know I'd struggle if, like, I don't know, let's say I'm friends with Drake and he was super toxic. And I'm like, dang, like, but isn't it cool to be friends with Drake? But isn't it? And I think about it like, I have to be honest with myself. If I was friends with somebody that impressive and I still, and they're toxic, I have to be honest with myself and still walk away from that friendship. But the same goes, for relationships. I feel like I've had partners and some people are like, man, I would love to have somebody who was like that. I would love this. I would love, but then it's like, but is this what I need for myself? Is this a relationship that I can give and receive love at a level that I can't do for anyone else? And it's from a genuine place. And if I'm not in the relationship for that reason, then I owe it to that person to leave. And same for, if I don't feel like I'm receiving that love, despite if this is the person that I love, and maybe it's not love because love isn't everything in a relationship, but I'm just saying, like, if there's a component, your non-negotiables that you feel like you are not being adequately served in this relationship, you cannot reciprocate that love. It's, I don't want to make it seem like transactional, but it's just like, you have to acknowledge where you can best thrive in a relationship, where you can be the best partner for your partner in a relationship. And if you aren't, if you're slacking, if you're, he'll be here because whatever, like, he's not going nowhere. Like, no, you should show up for your partner in ways that are shocking you, And I really feel like that's just something that I've really had to accept, that I know myself as a partner. I know what capacity I want to be in a relationship. And I love when I'm in a relationship and it's like, this is my home. These hugs fix everything that the day messed up. And that's a lot of pressure. I get it, but that's just me. But like, that's me in a relationship capacity. But when I feel like it's like, meh, okay. Like, I can tell I'm like, okay, I'm not my best self here. I'm not serving this person the way they need to be served. This is not right for them. And so, yeah, this is a heavy tangent, but you really got to be honest with yourself. And it's hard to change when it comes to relationships and friendships and loved ones. I feel like that is like one of the hardest places for me to change, especially. I feel like I tethered to friendships so hard because of the time, and I had to adopt the fact that nobody is tenured into your life. Okay. No matter how long somebody's been in your life, they don't earn, there's no like, okay, you've been here for X amount of years, so you no longer can be removed. No, that's not how life works. Honestly, I adopt the sense that there can be reviews on anybody in my life all the time, including me. And I have to be honest with myself. Am I serving this person? Because this doesn't just go one way. And maybe I need to like specify that, but this isn't just one way. If you aren't showing up for the people the way you expect them to show up for you, you got to be honest with yourself. And it will come a day when you got to drink that milk and somebody's going to come to you and be like, look, you aren't doing this, and you expect this, and this, and I can't do that for you. And they should. That's out of self-respect for them. But you got to be honest with yourself in that moment and receive that. Don't be defensive. But be honest with yourself and say, you know what, you're right. Like, and maybe it'll take you some days. Maybe your pride will be hurt. But at the end of the day, like, be honest with yourself. Are they right? Are what they're saying valid? Is this somebody who loves you and is coming to you in a space of, I want for this friendship to survive, but I got to be honest with you. This is what it is. And so that's gonna be the thing there. Let's move to our self-reflective questions. How does change influence your relationships with others and your sense of belonging? And so when you change, let's say, and your surroundings don't, how does that make you feel about yourself? How have you managed that, in congruence? And I know it's uncomfortable. It is very uncomfortable. I feel like I've gone through phases where it's like, I feel like my focus has shifted. And then I've been in other phases where it's like the focus of my friends and surroundings has shifted and mine has not. And so I have to manage that, and I have to be honest with myself and say, okay, is it a matter of I need to catch up with everyone else? Is it a matter of, or not even catch up, but I need to shift with everyone else? Or is it a matter of we need to part ways because we are focused on two very different things? And it is, not serving. It's not the fact that we're focused on two different things, but it's like one is hindering the other. And that's really where the root of how I feel about all of this I don't feel like you should hold anyone back. And I never want to be the reason to hold someone back. And I really feel, if I'm not serving you to be your best self, life is hard. Life is hard enough. And so if I'm not helping you pull the best out of life that you need to pull, then I need to remove myself and make room for somebody who can do that for you. And that really is how I operate. And the same goes for the people that I remove from my life. If I feel like I cannot be my authentic self, I can't be honest, I can't operate in a space where you can tell me how you feel and know that I'm going to receive that well, this doesn't serve either of us. This isn't productive for either of us. And I have to be honest with that. I don't think you have to have, the drama, the turmoil, the cursing outs and the fights and arguments. I don't think you need a big shebang. Now, some people do need that to walk out of your life. There are some people who need a spectacle, who need a reason, who need you to be the villain in order to walk out of your life. And that's fine. Yeah, well, it's not fine. But as a person who doesn't need all of that, I had to stop shaping the narrative. I had to stop trying to manipulate. I don't want to be the villain, and I know they're going to see me as a villain, but this is how I feel. And I just had to accept, you know what? Sometimes I'm going to be the villain in their story, regardless of what I do. Sometimes standing up for yourself makes you the villain in somebody's story. And that is fine with me. Like, it's to the point where it's like, I can't shape your story. You're writing it. You write the story. I could do all the tap dances, the fun flowers, all the things, but they write their story. And so you really have to accept that. And that takes so much pressure off of you. But so there's that. Okay, sorry. Whew. All right. Second self-reflective question. Consider a personal experience where a change in your life led to shifts in your relationships or identity. And I truly feel like, there's so many times when I've had a change of pace. I'm even thinking about when I started medical school. A lot of my friends struggled because I wasn't as available. And it was like, you don't talk to me anymore. We don't hang out anymore. And it's like, I had to think about it. Like, am I really, am I a bad friend? Is it me? Or is it just a sense of like, I need patience right now. I need friends who can be patient with me and understand that, number one, I'm like drowning with the amount of stuff I have to do. But like, is this something that can be worked out, or do they just need a friend who's more attentive? And I've even, thinking about it when people get significant others. We've all heard of those friends who kind of go ghost. And there are people like that, but can you handle those friends? I feel like the friends that have managed friendships poorly when they get a significant other, I try not to really dig into them about it. But I also manage the ways I handle that friend. If it's going to be one of those things where you really only come out when your significant other isn't available, okay, then let me know when you want to hang out. And maybe if I'm available, then I will, but like, don't expect invitations because I anticipate you will prioritize your relationship over our friendship. And that's fine. But like, I'm also going to prioritize other things over our friendship if that is how I see it's moving. And so maybe that's a little more practical for me, but if you're one of the people who just hate that, then that's fine. Like, be honest about that. But yeah, so that's definitely something to consider. And then think about the ways that, this is something too. When I was more invested in my self-love bag, that's when I started losing a lot of friends and even potential partners. And the truth of the matter is, there are certain people who can only handle the damaged version of you. I'm going to repeat that. There are certain people who can only handle and only want to handle the damaged version of you. And they will only want you in that capacity. And as soon as you start to heal, as soon as you start to think about yourself over their needs, as soon as you start to be honest with yourself, hold yourself accountable, and then hold them accountable, they don't want anything to do with you. And you really have to eliminate the people in your life like that. And I had to be honest with myself. There are certain people who only wanted the toxic traits of me so that they could gossip about it and make it a thing. And it's like, as soon as I wasn't exhibiting those toxic traits, when I wasn't interested in talking about other friends, when I wasn't interested in just going out and getting lit, they didn't want anything to do with me. And it's like, that is, or even in partners, you know, when I had some self-respect, it was like, no, I'm not just gonna let you come over, right? That was the point where they're like, oh, okay, then yeah, no, I don't think it's gonna work out, or you know, whatever. They stage an argument, whatever. But it's like, you are so much better off without those people. Why are you holding on to people who can only handle you in the damaged form? What does that say about you? What does that say about what they need from you? Your healed version might be too big for them. They simply might not be able to afford the healed version of you. The healed version of you is going to require the healed version of them, and they don't want to do that. That's what that means. That is the issue there. And so you really have to be honest with yourself. This is why we can't tether our identities to people. This is why we have to embrace change and recognize that, you know what, maybe this means we got to go our separate ways for whatever reason. Doesn't have to be toxic turmoil, anger, whatever. Yeah, it might be heartbreaking. Absolutely. But you have to know that on the other side of that heartbreak is a better version of you and them. Or maybe not, you know, who knows? Okay. And then finally, what challenges or opportunities arise from navigating changes in your identity or self-concept? And so, you know, a lot of it is not getting into a negative space, not getting down on yourself, really having the resources and tools to pull yourself out of those, you know, toxic thought patterns. And, you know, just be honest with yourself. You know your intentions. And sometimes we are the villain. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to make it seem like you're never the problem. Sometimes we are the problem. Sometimes I think about, you know, my damaged self really did ruin some situations. Because I wasn't my best self and I wasn't able to be honest at that time. And in some cases, you know, I thought, well, maybe I'm just going to play the game like they play it and then that'll be fine. But that's not who I am. And that wasn't serving who I am. And so I have to be honest with myself about that. And, you know, that's hard. But you really have to grow and give yourself that space to grow, be patient, you know, and have that self-love. So thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. Sorry I'm uploading it late, but it's still, you know, we're still going to have the same number for April. So I'm still on my streak. We're still doing the things. Don't forget to fill out the multiple choice question on Spotify, which is, how do you typically respond to change? So make sure to check that out. And then, of course, if you don't already follow me on Instagram, follow me at @square_of_self_love. We had our first self-love session today. Today's Saturday. I definitely started recording this episode on Monday during the eclipse and didn't finish it until Saturday. But so yeah, we had our first self-love session. I loved it. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for everybody who showed up. You can anticipate our next self-love session on the last Saturday of April, and it will be on Discord. Keep an eye out on social media, and we will have the link for you to join the chat at any time. You can be a part of the community, have those conversations, really engage with us, because I think, you know, this is going to be a good place to just kind of heal, get your weekly recharge, whatever. And then I think 2 weeks is actually a perfect amount of time to really kind of have some things happen that you can debunk or, you know, decompress, but then also give you a refuel for the next 2 weeks. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be really good. And as always, don't forget to love yourself. Bye.